Hello and welcome, or welcome back to the channel if you've been here before. If you saw one of my previous videos about the Porsche 986 anniversary that was on display at the NEC, that kind of got me thinking about Porsche Boxsters again. Porsche GB have very kindly lent me this 718 Boxster, which is the 4-cylinder version. So the 718 Porsche Boxster caused quite a lot of controversy when it came out, and quite a lot of hate towards it from Porsche fans, and particularly motoring journalists who didn't like the sound of the engine, didn't think it was emotional enough. I didn't just want to take that on board, I wanted to find out for myself, so that's why I thought nice opportunity to find out what entry level Porsche is like, but also to find out the truth about this 4-cylinder flat 4 engine. So I've got the spec sheet for this particular press car. So the base price for this particular car is £47,090, but it's also got this rather nice gentian blue metallic, which is a lovely colour. I really like this colour. It's £632 for that. It's got PDK as a £2,000 option. So I've not experienced PDK on a Boxster before because mine was a manual, so that'll be interesting to try out. It's got sports tailpipes in silver, which are £380. It's got a 64-litre fuel tank, so it's got, I think, the slightly optional larger fuel tank, which is an £84 option. It's got 19-inch Porsche Boxster S wheels on it, which is a £1,313 option. That's quite pricey. I mean, my Boxster had the basic wheels on it, and even though it didn't look quite as good, I always found the sidewall to be quite large, and that made the ride particularly comfortable, as well as it was still sporty enough. So it'll be interesting to find out if there's any kind of compromises with that. Tyre sealing compound and electric compressor, £42. Automatic dimming mirrors with integrated rain sensor, £345. Park assist front and rear, which is I've already been using that. That's really good, because even though it's quite a small car when you look at it from the outside, inside for some reason it seems massive, and it's quite hard to see the corners. So again, like I said with the 911, it's nice to have that. Speed limit indicator, £236. Cruise control, £228. Heated multifunctional steering wheel. I've been trying that in this weather that we've had. The weather's a bit changeable. You'll probably notice from the continuity in the video that some minutes there's snow and some minutes there's sun, so bear with me on that. But like I say, the heated steering wheel has been fantastic. I wouldn't do without that now I've had one, and that's £329. 2-zone automatic climate control, £639. Isofix child seat mountings in the passenger seat, £126. And you've got the Bose surround sound audio system, which is £834. So the total price of this press car is £54,642. So you're looking at about, what, nearly £7,000 worth of options. So anyway, that's the spec. Now the 4-cylinder Boxster has obviously come about because the EU have regulated that, I suppose, the carbon footprint of Porsche as a whole needs to come down a bit. So we need cars like this in order to make all of the products that they make possible. So the 718 badging is reminiscent of the 1957 RSK 4-cylinder car, which was one of Porsche's most successful 4-cylinder racing cars. It's a bit of a tenuous link for people who don't know Porsche, but obviously there's a connection if you know a little bit more about the Porsche history. And Porsche is quite good at referencing its history, because if you go to the Stuttgart Museum, you'll see that they've got an electric vehicle that Ferdinand Porsche worked on in 1898. So there's a really great tie-in with their new electric car products. Also, Porsche's got a lot of form in 4 cylinders, because they did the 924, the 944, the 912 as well, and also the RS60 race car. So it's not as though it's their first time, and it's not as though they're doing something which they've never done before and completely running away from the heritage of the brand. So I would say that's another plus point for it that should make people think twice about criticising it, because yes, we have been really spoiled with all these flat sixes over the years, but you know, there is heritage there that ties Porsche to the 4-cylinder engine. Oh, and of course, sorry 914 fans, I should have mentioned the 4-cylinder 914 as well. Something else obviously that's changed is the turbocharging, but again, we can't really criticise Porsche for turbocharging, because they've got serious form again with the 1975 all the way back to the 1975 911 turbo, so they know a thing or two about turbos. So the 718 model has a sharper design than the previous model, I would say, and it has a bit of a presence to it as well on the road. Chris Harris described the move to 4-cylinder from 6-cylinder as like a professional boxer or a plugist, or I think he called it, I had to look it up on the internet, from a professional to more of a kind of an amateur slugger. And I can see what he means by that. It does have that kind of scrappy type feel to it. You have to work the engine a little bit more than you used to with the 6-cylinder. And from a sound point of view, when you're just driving normally, there isn't any sound really. You have to sort of give it a bit more to be able to actually hear the engine in the way that you didn't have to with the flat 6. That might be fine for the entry level, where people aren't that necessarily bothered about the noise. They're more bothered about the savings in fuel and CO2 emissions and it being on the company car list. But maybe for an enthusiast, it is a bit of a problem. But there is the sports button, or the sport button as well, which does go some way to open up the exhaust. Normally when you're sitting in traffic, it has a bit of a Subaru burble to it, obviously because the Boxster engine in the Subaru was a flat 4 as well, or a Boxer 4. So with the sport button on, you do get a little bit of crackle on the overrun when you lift off, and you do get a little bit more of a raucous sound. As people have mentioned, it is a little bit more of a hollow crackle. It doesn't have the bark that you get with other engines, obviously like a Ferrari or even the flat 6 in the other cars. But if you're only doing that occasionally on the way home from work, it's probably good enough. So the chassis balance in compliance and the roll resistance is excellent. And the way it flows down the road is just so lovely. It just feels so sure-footed. Obviously we're on these big 19-inch Pirelli Pre-Zero tyres, but it's not just about the tyres, even though obviously they play a big part, but just the composure of the chassis and the feel is just really nice. The steering is quite sort of heavily weighted. Again, people moaned about electrical steering, but to be honest, not being a Formula 1 driver or whatever, I can't really feel the difference from my old model, and it does weight up lovely in a really nice way. So it communicates an awful lot back to you. And apparently the steering rack is 10% quicker than the old model, but I didn't drive the old model, so I'll have to take other people's word for that. So apparently over the old model there's 13% better fuel economy and obviously reduced CO2 as well. The steel brakes are good, it's got good brake feel and it's got a really good communicative brake pedal, so you tend to know what the brakes are doing at all times. And again, like all Porsches, they're pretty confidence inspiring. You do have to lean on them a little bit more. I'm used to not driving an automatic or PDK car. I normally, with a manual car, I would tend to use the gearbox to help with the braking as well, but that's obviously you're relying totally on the brakes to slow you down. I do like the Porsche Communication Management, PCM, or infotainment system in this car. It's got a nice touch screen. It's also got really good connectivity to your phone with Bluetooth, or you can plug it in with a cable in here. which once you plug it in with a cable, you get access to Apple CarPlay as well. The thing I like about it is this, after driving the Carrera T and also driving the 992, obviously the 992 is sort of next level in terms of the interior, and this in a way does feel a little bit like the older version. It's very much like the Carrera T, which was the 991. I quite like that, because when you look at cars like Mercedes nowadays, where it's becoming more about the infotainment of the screens, I think journalists have said that with the A-Class, they're obviously aiming the car at the younger generation who are interested in all the media, and the driving dynamics actually weren't that great. I like this level for a Porsche because, you know, the dials are old school, apart from the one that you can switch on the right to have information about the sat-nav and the stereo and things like that. But the screen's obviously touchscreen, you've got all of the modern conveniences, but it's not too big and it doesn't take over. It's there if I want it, but it kind of just sort of blends into the background if I don't. Yeah, I think this is the right level. And on top of that, in terms of the interior, we've got the cup holders that you had in the 991, and I do love those. It's a shame they've kind of disappeared now. The mechanism and the system for those is a little bit of a theatre. Like I say, I'm talking about the complete package, as well as the way it drives, the way it handles, the build quality, all of those things. You're going to want to live with it on a day-to-day basis, and particularly that's probably the remit of this 4-cylinder model, is living with it on a day-to-day basis. And yes, maybe it is compromised in terms of out-and-out petrol head appeal, but as a livable thing with the occasional bit of crackle with the sport button, that's going to appeal really broadly. It's going to help with the Porsche bringing a broader customer base to this car, and maybe getting more people to use them every day. Now, a couple of things that I am really loving are the heated seats, which I think are standard now, and the heated steering wheel, which isn't, as we saw from the spec sheet at the start of the video. I've got the roof down, but the heated seats and the heated steering wheel are just absolutely fantastic. I think it's certainly worth the 300 quid option to have the steering wheel. So, things that I don't like. Well, one of the things that's slightly strange about this car, and I don't know whether it's because it's riding on the 19-inch Boxster S wheels, but when you're parking or when you're pulling onto your drive and you've got quite a bit of lock on, it doesn't even have to be full lock, but it's particularly bad at full lock. The tyres tend to scrabble and it sort of bounces on the blocks of the tyres, and it makes a fair bit of noise as well. And if anybody's standing around, it's quite noticeable because it kind of hops and rubs the tyres and makes a horrible sound. So that's one of the things I don't really like. I would be interested to try a standard Boxster on the standard wheels and standard tyres, which are probably 18s I would have thought, just to see if it does the same thing. Now, something people used to criticise in the 987 Boxster that I had was the cheapness of the plastics up here on some of the switchgear and things like that, and it seems as though Porsche reacted to that, because now up here all of the plastics feel really nice. The only criticism I have got of the plastics is the switch on the heated steering wheel. I know some other people I've seen have moaned about this. It's just that the button feels a little bit cheap, so it doesn't feel like a particularly quality button. Yeah, we've solved the problem up here, but it's moved onto the £300 steering wheel. Something else that I was quite surprised by, and my daughter didn't like, was that there's no lights in the vanity mirrors up here. Now, first world problems, I know, but yeah, it was a bit of a surprise. Another thing that I'm not that happy about is the electric handbrake again, which is very similar to the 991 handbrake. It's definitely what I would consider to be counterintuitive. So I didn't think I was going to be one of those people that would moan about the 4-cylinder. And to be honest, if you look at the performance figures, I think Porsche have been very clever that you can't criticise it on performance, because in the sort of 0 to 60 time, the top speed, the 0 to 100 time, all of that's just better than it was with the older model. But I think there is a lack of emotion with this particular engine. Maybe if you're used to Subaru engines, I think there is still a bit of a specialness to the engine, because it's not an inline 4, but definitely some of the character has gone. But, you know, I have a car YouTube channel. I'm a really car-orientated petrol head, so maybe it is only going to be those niche of people like me that are going to have maybe a problem with it. But now there are other cars in the range that you can buy that have the 6-cylinder back in them, so just go and buy one of those. But I think what we should do is we should celebrate the fact that, you know, this car is helping making Porsche profitable to build things like the Taycan, to build the GT3 products, those kind of things. So yeah, I'm all for it. I'm not going to curse it. I think there's still enough here to reward and enjoy. But yeah, if it really bothers you, just go and buy a 6-cylinder. To draw some conclusions then for the video, I definitely don't understand why people hate on the flat 4. I think for the reasons that I've mentioned, you know, it helps with the carbon footprint of Porsche, it helps with the broader appeal, people who want to get a taste of Porsche. With the sport button, it gives you a bit of that feel of the sounds that you will get if you move up the range. So it might be a bit synthetic, it might be a little bit hollow, but it's a great starting point for getting you addicted to Porsche. So if the 718 brings more people to the brand, doesn't that mean that this is again saving Porsche? The 986 did it from a financial point of view. Now maybe the 718 is doing it from a emissions and saving the world point of view. And at least it's still got an internal combustion engine. How much longer are we going to be able to enjoy these things? So on top of all that, it is still genuinely a really great sports car in terms of chassis dynamics, build quality, presence, all of those sorts of things. So that's about it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you found some of the information or some of my feelings on the car useful if you're thinking of buying a 718 Boxster. Please like and subscribe if you get the chance. It really helps with the algorithm and helps other people find the car videos. But anyway, thanks very much again for watching, and bye for now.